Thanks, Peter. Right. Does anyone know what is one of the most commonly crocheted Bible verses that people hang up on their wall?
Or will
Yes.
always be the
Oh, we got to give prizes here. We got another prize to give out here. Want to say it again?
As for this house, we will serve the Lord.
Now, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Right now, who said that?
Joshua.
Joshua. And who said it? Excellent. Was that a trick question? That one. Yeah, it's in Joshua. Isn't that one of the most incredible verses? It's like this bold declaration. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And it's really at the end of a broader, beautiful passage. And he kind of lays it out there. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourself this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your ancestors served among the Euphrates or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are living. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. Isn't that an interesting declaration? As for me and who else? My household. He's making this decision for his whole household. How well did he and his household do? Does anyone know what happened to Joshua's descendants in short order? Does anyone know?
They apostatized.
How long did it take?
One generation.
It's fascinating, isn't it? So if you turn a few pages later, is that worth a book? I feel like that's worth a book too, isn't it? All right, we're going to give a couple more away here. So so it didn't take very long. And so in the book of Judges, just a few pages later, this is what happened. It says this, it says, the people served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua and of the elders who outlived him and who had seen all the great things the Lord had done. So this is first generation. First generation, people who saw the miraculous. People who were the counterparts, the elders along with Joshua. How'd they do? They did pretty well, right? Now, really interesting, just a little bit later, here's what Judges chapter 2 says. It says this, after that whole generation had been gathered up to their ancestors, another generation grew up who neither knew the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. Then the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord and served the Baals. They forsook the Lord, the God of their ancestors who had brought them out of Egypt. They followed and worshipped various gods of the peoples around them. They aroused the Lord's anger because they forsook him. So here, what generation are we talking about here? Right? This is unbelievable. This is really short order. And this is not someone who just was thinking of passing on a legacy. These are people who witnessed with their own eyes this incredible rescue of the people of God out of the promise. These are people who saw the Red Sea part. These are people who saw incredible acts of God's salvation and rescue plan. And yet it is only one generation later where individuals are walking away. Now, this pattern that we see in Joshua followed by Judges, this pattern of something that we believe so passionately and something that we care about not being passed on to the next generation, this is not just found in the pages of Scripture. This is found in real time, and I believe it's because it is found in every single one of us. So another just interesting example that we stumbled upon that I found a particular interest in, but anyone know who this character is?
Santa Claus.
How'd you know that?
You get a book.
I want a book.
Well done. You win a book. And what is Santa Claus's actual name?
I'll let somebody else answer.
Give me that book back. No, what is he's Saint who?
Saint Nick.
Saint Nick, right? Jolly. He's a jolly old Saint Nick. And so where was he born?
Bishop of
Turkey.
Milan.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Modern day Turkey, right? And so do we know more about Saint Nicholas? What is he known as?
He was a bishop who helped the poor.
He's a bishop,
He
right?
helped the poor. They said somebody wanted a dowry for their
Yes.
daughters, and he didn't have the money, and so the bishop, under quiet, threw the money in the directions they saw in the morning, but he was always concerned for the poor.
Always
reaching out to
care for the marginalized, the poor. Exactly, right. And so he is known as Father Christmas, St. Nicholas. He's known as the patron saint of cities and children's causes all over the world. Did you know that St. Nicholas is also known as the patron saint of pawn shops? Now, pawn shops. Did you know that patron saints actually have, that pawn shops have a patron saint? First of all, maybe that is an interesting place to start. But and then it is also St. Nicholas. So even in the logo, some believe that even the logo of pawn shops, those 3 different purses, relates to the story of St. Nicholas, because again, he is the patron saint of pawn shops. Now, why do pawn shops have a patron saint? What is the story of pawn shops?
Somebody gives something they have and takes it to the pawn shop, and the pawn shop sells it to somebody else.
Exactly. And why would St. Nicholas be the patron saint of that sort of an activity?
Because everybody takes back Christmas gifts.
That's where the sweaters that you don't want end up at the pawn shop. That's a great
book.
Poor people can buy things at pawn shops for less price.
Right.
Right. It's even more than that, though.
But you can take it in and get money and then do something else with the money.
There's an interesting history of pawn shops. It actually was created by caring friars. Did you know that Julius II has an edict actually governing pawn shops? Montes Pietatis is what they're called. And the story behind them is that they were actually designed as an outreach to individuals in poverty. Did you know that's where pawn shops came from? They were designed to be a tool that was designed to help people at their moment in need. Because here's what the caring friars understood. They said that sometimes people are going to have a really tough time, and perhaps the best way to help them is if they're late on their rent, where they could bring something, they could temporarily give it to us, that could be monetized by people who wouldn't monetize it any other way. We can hold on to it as security. We can give them access to the capital that they need for their emergency right now. And as soon as they're back on their feet, which we will help them get back on their feet, then they can come back to us and they can get their goods back. It was created as a safety net for individuals in poverty. Now, how many people today, when you see pawn shops, easy cash for gold, how many people get a warm feeling thinking the church is really doing a service at that moment? How many people, get warm and fuzzy feelings about St. Nicholas and pawn shops, and it's all just mixed up together, right? Something happened where this tool that was designed to help people at their moment of need has somehow become the exact opposite of what it was intended to be. Something that was designed to help people in need now preys on people in need. And instead of seeing caring friars that are there designed to help you at your moment of need, today that's not the type of loving interaction that you are most likely to experience if you are in a situation and you need to go to a pawn shop. Now, what happened? What happened? Let me give you just one other example. There's a university, and this is their founding mission statement. It's this: to be plainly instructed and consider well that the main end of your life and studies is to know God and Jesus Christ. That was the founding mission statement of a college, of a university. Anyone know what it was?
Harvard.
Yeah.
That was an easy one, I guess, on that. It was Harvard, yeah. It was Harvard, right? Isn't that interesting that that was their mission statement? And on the diploma, you will see Veritas, which means truth. And then you'll see Christo et Ecclesia. What does that mean?
Church.
Truth for Christ and the church. In the very seal that they have, the mission is still there. Now, Stephen Muller did a research project on the 350th anniversary, and his conclusion, he was the president of Johns Hopkins, his conclusion in this report was that this university has become godless. And it was interesting because in it, he's talking about the moral decay, and he's talking about the reality that this institution of higher education that was created for the moral character and the training and equipping of pastors and bringing the Word of God in an application in all of life, that mission has been replaced by the pursuit of of knowledge, but somehow has forgot the fount, the very source of knowledge as well. It was interesting that less than 100 years after the founding of Harvard, there was a group of individuals that saw the drift that was starting to take place, and so they moved south, they moved to Connecticut, and they said, it's not just veritas, but we want truth to be seen in the light or lux of Christ. And so their mission statement was not just veritas, but it was lux et veritas. And so that institution, created to be a bulwark of mission-true higher education, is known as Yale University. The same thing happened in short order, even though Yale was created to be a mission-true version of what they wanted Harvard initially to be. Isn't that interesting? Now, I believe that what happened between Joshua and Judges, between Generation 1 and Generation 2, is the same thing that happened at Harvard from Generation 1 to Generation 2, is the same thing that happened at Yale from Generation 1 to Generation 2, and is the same thing that happens in our own hearts on a regular basis. I believe the natural tendency is to always become like the culture around us. I believe the natural tendency is to forget the vibrancy with which we once held things that were most important to us, and to slowly become like the temperature around us. I believe drift is inevitable. Organizationally, it is inevitable for your churches. It is inevitable in your own life. It is inevitable in your families, unless you do the hard work of going in a different direction. If we do nothing, drift will be the natural story in our families, in our churches, in our nonprofits, in all of the organizations that we care about. So the question then is, if drift happens, how do we prevent it? How do we make sure that that is not our story? And why would I start the kind of topic of spiritual danger doing good by talking about drift? Because I believe, I spent 2 years looking at this issue of drift. Spent over 200 hours interviewing leaders of nonprofits, charities, churches, institutions, across the country, across the world, and trying to identify how does drift happen and how do we prevent it. And the conclusions kind of surprised me. There were some conclusions that maybe we could have anticipated. That your board matters, that where you get funding matters, that how you recruit and retain employees matters, the way that you do culture, what you celebrate, what you measure, what you monitor matters. There's a bunch of things that kind of maybe you could anticipate, but the thing that became so clear in looking at this is the ultimate area where drift happens or is prevented is not an organizational issue. It's not an issue that, in terms of looking at all of these kind of pieces, and if we can engineer the system right, we can stop drift from happening. Because ultimately, what we see in Joshua, what I see in my own life, is the very issue of drift. It is deeply personal, and it starts at the individual level. And I am convinced that this issue, it sometimes does not get addressed and treated. What is happening inside you, what is happening inside me, it does not get addressed as it should in people that are doing really good full-time, that are doing really good work. People that are in your line of work, I believe, are more susceptible, are more in danger of that level of drift. Your families are more at risk, your organizations are more at risk, and you yourself are more at risk because of the really good and significant work that you're doing every day. I looked at this on an organizational level because I was so intrigued by this man. Anyone know who this man is? Muhammad Yunus. And what did he found?
Grameen Bank.
Grameen Bank. And I was so intrigued by his example. That's a book answer. I think I'm out of books, sorry. So he had this really interesting model where instead of seeing people as passive recipients of charity, he was the first one to really kind of launch this new movement in social entrepreneurship. And he founded Grameen Bank, and he started investing in individuals. He started giving access to capital, and he started working with them in business coaching and training. And today it's serving millions of families. He talks about how this tool that was created to help individuals in poverty has actually long-term, he believes, been co-opted by some people that, just like happened to pawn shops, have taken a tool and used it for their own profit as opposed to the primary use and benefit of the families that we serve. And so I'm in this space and I think a lot about this. I think about the work that I do, and it has happened to pawn shops, it has happened to organizations, and I believe, again, it's something that happens to all of us. So I care deeply about this issue of drift at an organizational benefit. Personally, I'm convinced that the tool of microfinance can be used for good or for harm. It's just a tool, just like financial services. A banking account can help you, or it can be turned into payday lending. The tool needs to have the heart behind it. When I was living in Rwanda, one of the first individuals that we served was an individual named Flourishing, and we ended up working with him. His business was flourishing. His life seemed to be like it was going in the right direction. I was one of his clients, and so he had a gardening business. And it was so fun to just watch his business steadily increase. He was getting more customers. He was growing his work in a significant way. And then I visited him in his house, and I saw that his kids they didn't have shoes, they weren't in school, and his home was this picture of poverty. And I remember feeling like this disconnect of, wait a minute, Muhammad Yunus told me that if everyone gets a microloan, if everyone grows a business, that their life is going to be better, that they will flourish. And then I saw this picture in front of me in real time of an individual that had the building blocks in place. Business, check. Increased income, check. Everything going right, check. And yet his home was still in poverty. So I thought like it was the mystery of time. I thought it just wasn't enough time. So I went back around Christmas time, went into his home, and it was the same picture of poverty. And it turns out he was making more, he was earning more, but he was spending his increased income on an alcohol addiction, on a gambling addiction, and on prostitution. And I remember thinking at that moment that that's not what I want to give my life to. That's not why I want to be here. And then in stark contrast to that, I'm working with individuals that had flourishing businesses and had a heart transformation that said, I'm blessed in my community so that I can be a blessing to others, and watched the micro-entrepreneur become the micro-philanthropist right in front. And the only difference in my mind was what was happening at the heart level. What happens at the heart matters. And again, your work matters so much. For eternity, yes, and for right now. The ability to talk about hard issues, what matters, the ability to influence how people think about going about their daily work, all of that matters a whole lot. And I'm thoroughly convinced of that. So personally, I'm not into microfinance. I'm into the gospel of Jesus Christ, and then applying that in the workplace, in everywhere that we serve. And so I've seen the difference. But I personally was hit by this topic, this conversation about the drift that happens, and again, the danger that we have of forgetting our core motivation, not at an organizational level, but at a personal level, after Mount Nyiragongo erupted. So this was a volcano that was across the border from Rwanda. My wife and I were living in Kigali. It was across the border in Goma. And has anyone been at a live volcano before? That was the most incredible. Is that not a question? I don't know. I was hoping someone else had, because it's an incredible, it's just incredible to actually see and experience. But Mount Nyiragongo erupted, and in addition to the lava that poured out of the crater, I never had seen this before, but literally it seemed almost random that around it, the earth would just open up and a slow-moving lava would pour out of the ground. And so literally you'd have one home that's completely intact, and then right next door you'd have just like the earth open and lava pour out and destroy everything. Everything. It was like the most uneven paving crew you've ever seen, where just like literally the lava was slow moving and it would destroy everything in its wake. And so it started in Mount Nyiragongo and went right through the heart of the city and then ended at the water at Lake Kivu. And we were there, and because of proximity, my wife and I were asked to go and respond, and we weren't trained in, like, what do you do in a disaster response? So we like put water and a sleeping bag and a tent, and we just literally showed up at the border, and I remember feeling, I have felt overwhelmed in my life. I don't know that I've ever felt more overwhelmed than sitting at the border and watching individuals with their most precious possessions on their head streaming by you, feeling like, what do we do to help? And feeling almost like, God, people who already are living in such poverty, like, oh, they are the ones who lose everything. And so my wife and I ended up eventually being assigned to a refugee camp and eventually being in a spot that we were able to respond and to help. And again, maybe you've read this story or heard, but it to me was such a pivotal moment in changing a perspective. As we were assigned to this refugee camp, the thing that struck us was the overwhelming need. And the second thing that struck us is how focused on brand and image the large relief and development organizations were. I was so surprised that literally it was like this branding campaign where they knew that this was going to be on the news. So the first thing was not helping the people, but it was to almost claim the area. And so people took their organizational logos and started putting them up everywhere. I was amazed at how everyone had kind of the matching coordinated gear with their logo. And so I was so surprised at that. My wife and I eventually were able to secure blankets. Church donated them, and so the money, we bought it locally, and we were about ready to give away the blankets. And then at that moment, we were told by the powerful NGOs that we weren't allowed to give away our blankets. And I remember feeling like, this is crazy. People are cold, it's the rainy season. We have blankets, we can help. And then we weren't allowed to give away our blankets. And the reason is because it had been rumored that there was a news crew from CNN that was going to show up, and they thought it wouldn't look as good when the camera started rolling with this shipment if people already had blankets. Because blankets were part of the shipment that were going to come in. Now, for me, that was, I've been sleeping on the ground. Our clothes were all wet. It was the rainy season. And I'm normally a calm and reserved person, but I was mad. I was mad because they were using people for their organizational purposes, and it wasn't love. It was a phony expression of love. It was loving their cause and their mission more than it was loving the people that were right in front of them. And that, to me, the hypocrisy that I saw, and a moment when people had just lost everything, set me off. It wasn't right. Surprisingly, perhaps, the CNN focused their attention somewhere else. I saw firsthand how short attention spans are. Money dries up real quickly, attention goes to some other part of the world. There was no group that came in, and so my wife and I were finally given the ability to give away the blankets. And so we got to be up on a platform. We got to partner with the Red Cross. So it wasn't just blankets we were giving away. We were able to give away more than that. And here we were on the front lines of this disaster, giving away things at a family's moment of need. Something changed though when my friend Michael grabbed his camera and started going to the side and started taking pictures. I remember immediately something changed in my heart. I remember that my love and my attention in a moment went from the person that was right in front of me to this idea of, I can't wait till people back home see this picture. I can't wait till people see like a masculine Mother Teresa responding in a crisis with a backdrop of a smoking volcano, giving away things that people need. I can't wait till people see how good I look. And also at that moment, it didn't bother me that one of the individuals was asked to walk through the line 3 times so that we could capture the exact right picture with the exact right look. What was I doing? I was doing exactly the same thing that I had had such righteous indignation at a large organization for doing. I had done the exact same thing in my own life that I had just moments before been filled with such anger that someone else would do it. I believe the natural tendency the natural tendency in my heart is to slowly forget why we do what we do and to slowly make it more about me than it is about loving people that are right in front of me. More to be focused on how I look, how I feel, than on the very real opportunity we have to be the expression of Christ's love to people that are all around us. When I saw the pictures coming from this time when Michael emailed them to me, they look so fake, they look so phony. And almost it was like, you get the pictures from family vacation from the beach and you think you're going to look real good, and then you see the actual picture and it doesn't look anything that you thought it would look like. I felt like there was such a fake expression of love on my face that literally sickened me as much as a man in a Speedo who shouldn't be in a Speedo. Now, this idea of self-centered spirituality, I believe Eugene Peterson captures it brilliantly. He was writing an article, and this is one of the things that just stood out to me. He said, we've all met a certain type of spiritual person. He's a wonderful person. He loves the Lord. He prays and reads the Bible all the time, but all he thinks about is himself. He's not a selfish person, but he's always at the center of everything he's doing. How can I witness better? How can I do this better? How can I take care of this person's problem better? It's me, disguised in a way that is difficult to see because his spiritual talk disarms us. I believe that self-centered spirituality is alive and well in my own heart. I believe it causes people and organizations to drift, and I believe it is something that largely goes undiagnosed. I started thinking about this topic, not just in that situation, but I found that Brian's book, When Helping Hurts, was talking about how much damage we could do to the people that we serve, and there wasn't nearly as much conversation about how it actually can harm us if we're not careful. It's not just the objects or recipients of our charity that we have to worry about, it's what's happening to us in the midst of doing this good work and loving and serving others. So today I just want to do a couple things. I want to help us identify how is it that we know when we are having this self-centered spirituality creep into our lives, and then how might we counteract it. So again, I believe that in the whole topic of flourishing in my own life, if I don't understand, diagnose, and actively work against it, I believe that this can actually cause our ministries, our churches, our families, and ourselves to wither and not flourish. So here we go. So 3 ways that self-centered service undermines impact. Undermines what it is, and then there will be more hopeful, hopefully a more helpful conversation about what do we do to prevent it. First thing we do, how does it undermine our impact? How does self-centered service undermine our impact? Well, the first thing that it does is causes an over-exuberance for our church or our ministry. If you're ever with an individual and you ever have these conversations and literally everything, it's all good stuff, but you ever meet someone who's just so excited about what they're doing that they have no ability to celebrate that God might just be doing other work through other churches or other organizations? It causes an over-exuberance about, like, I'm so excited about adoption, right? It's the only thing right now. Or I'm so excited about church planning. Or I'm so excited about microfinance. Anytime we have an over-exuberance, we end up elevating only one part of the body and missing that God is at work in so many other places. And this is a key part of this conversation. I think that in general, Christian leaders have overemphasized one aspect of the body and missed this beautiful thing of celebrating that God is at work in all places. Second way that it undermines our impact is this idea of replication. I see this especially among millennials. Do you know how many millennials are going to start their organization, their own organization, in the next year? A lot. And I believe part of that is because it's about them. It's not about the cause. If it was about the cause, you might have a far greater impact being a branch manager of a moderately sized mission or church or charity than you would ever have being founder and CEO. And yet founder and CEO sounds so much better. There is a horrible, inefficient waste of resources because of replication, because of an inability to see, believe, and want to join what God has already called other people to. Third, patronizing approach. If it's about us, We go in with our plans, we go in with our solutions without stopping, pausing to listen. This relates to our previous conversation, but there's a patronizing approach of, look, I'm smart enough. I've studied this enough. I'm the one who has the direct connection to God. I'm the one who has the solution. Let me go and let me solve your problems. That leads to a patronizing approach to the people that we're serving, and it is toxic. Second, this is so fun. Second, how does a self-centered service have a negative impact? It undermines our families. Chapter 3 was, my wife calls the spiritual danger of doing good my confessional. And maybe there's a piece in that, but I think failure is such fertile ground for learning. And if I could just, wish on my friends one lesson that they wouldn't have to go through, it would be the lesson of the impact of self-centered service on people that we love and that are all around us. After the kids were in bed, my wife pulled me aside and said she wanted to have a conversation. And anyone, know like the conversation, like, like it's not like, I just want to talk about my day. It's like the conversation. It's not going to be a good one. Am I the only one who knows that look? All right, good. Well, not good, but I'm glad to have company and friends. And so we had this conversation, and she said, Peter, I love you, I'm committed to you, but I feel nothing for you. Now, when the person on this earth that I care about most says that she feels nothing for me, that's not a good sign. And the worst part is I had no idea. I had no idea that we were even heading in any sort of a different direction. And she talked about how I had justified what was a busy week, became a busy month, became a busy quarter, became a busy year. And it was all this crazy idea that I was indispensable in the work of the Ministry of Hope International, forgetting that I was not indispensable there. I was indispensable at home. I was the only person that could be Laurel's husband and could be the dad to the kids that we had been blessed with. And so I had justified this busy season, but there, very clearly, the play stood as called. My calendar became evidence A. I was traveling 110 nights. I was not home, and even when I was home, I had my phone on me. I was distracted, and I was missing this incredibly special moment of time as my kids were growing up and as my family was at a key stage. And I am so glad, I truly am glad that she had the willingness to tell me that I had misaligned priorities and misaligned perception of ministry. Next thing, projected performance. I believe that there is a danger with my kids. And I think as part of this healing is whenever we feel like our kids have to behave in a certain way because of how it makes us look, we are setting them up for a faith fallout. I truly believe that, because then it becomes a charade. It doesn't give individuals space to go through questions and to have space to not pretend that everything is figured out in their life. And so I've seen this. I go to pastors, when I was a kid, I go to pastors' conferences, and there normally are only two types of pastors' kids. It's people that toe the line and people that say, I'm done trying, I'm not going to try anymore. Very rarely do you find anyone in between those two extremes in this world that we live. And I think part of it comes from a misunderstanding of perception that how people view the parents, how they view the kids is how people are going to view the parents. And I believe it's one of the other pieces and the downsides of a self-centered view of service. And then lastly, we eventually will undermine ourselves. Eventually there's going to come a point where you will feel massively underappreciated in your work. Don't people recognize how much I'm sacrificing? Don't they understand what I'm doing? I believe that a sense that you are underappreciated actually leads to some really dangerous behaviors and opens up a lot of dangerous doors that become difficult to shut, because the attitude that I've seen and I've felt and I've experienced is if other people aren't appreciating me, I'm due just a little bit of my own time. I'm due a little more elapse because I've worked so hard and I've done so much. And I believe that opens up a door that's very difficult to close. Second thing, this idea of Christian karma. Karma is not a Christian concept. And yet I believe that it is a Christian practice among many. This idea that if we do good, we therefore must get good given back to us. That's from Hinduism. That is not from Christianity. And this idea, for me, I've seen it, that when we're doing all this good and then someone gets sick in our family, or a kid goes off the rails, or we start having all of these challenges, it's easy to say, God, why aren't you keeping up your end of the bargain? Why aren't you doing what I deserve? Why aren't you doing good to me? Don't you see all this good that I'm doing? And that again causes a pretty dark night of the soul when we have this idea of Christian karma that is not Christian at all.
So is the Christian no good deed goes unpunished?
I don't think it's that either. Sometimes it feels like that. But I think there's a different way, and again, this is where theology matters. It matters. What we don't see crocheted on the wall is, in this life you will have problems. You will have troubles. Maybe we should crochet that more, hang that verse up on the wall more. But what's our expectation? I think there is moderate expectation of moments of joy and happiness on this life that are simply a foretaste of ultimately what we're going to have. But in the midst of the brokenness, we can celebrate them as moments, but not as the expectation that that's what everything is. It's not like moment-to-moment joy and belly laugh and social media avatars that everything is happy, right? It's this idea of this is a lurch through brokenness with moments that we can enjoy and savor of beauty and joy and celebration, but they're not to be the constant expectation. Eventually you'll feel overwhelmed. I find that people that are at the center of their service, me included, we eventually become overwhelmed because we don't delegate. We don't give other opportunities because it kind of makes us feel good to be needed. And when it feels good to be needed, that's good in maybe a short term, but eventually you will be on the path to massive problems if you don't figure out the radical gift of giving away things. Isn't this like a happy after lunch topic? I feel like this is so much fun. Thank you, Jeremy. It's my only time to Akron I'll ever be invited. But I feel like you got to go through some of the bad stuff to understand then what the solution is. And if we don't understand that there's a problem always, I think there's a battle to keep trying to put ourselves at the center of the story, that if we don't keep fighting against that and put the only person that should be center of the story, and that's Jesus, if we don't keep having a recognition of that, we are going to go down some paths that will not lead to healthy places. So, if that's the problem, what's the solution? Maybe just pause. Anyone else? Do you see yourself in any of these, or any times where you've seen those about other people that you might know?
Not
Not
that
you.
I'm going to adhere.
Other people. I mean, you guys are in this life of full time. Do you feel that pressure sometimes to, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can say I do. Sometimes I feel like I'm peddling Jesus as one of many solutions to people's problems, or it's better than some of the others versus a wholehearted, holistic opportunity to present to people, to share love on them. You do get so caught up because you do believe in the mission that God's called you to, but sometimes that does override the right heart to do all of that. So,
Yeah, there's nothing wrong, right, with celebrating and believing in what you're doing. But sometimes taking that too far. Yeah. Anyone else? We're among friends.
Yeah, I think too the overwhelmed one is big because you see everything that needs to be done, but yet you can only do like 2 of the list of 100, and you're just going, well, all right, well, this is kind of overwhelming, and it kind of stinks. I'm not cutting it. And the reality is, God will take care of the other 99 while He has you doing the one. And when you get overwhelmed and you say those things, for me it shows my lack of trust.
Yeah.
That I really don't trust that God is moving. Because if I don't do it, nobody else will.
Right.
It's not true.
Yeah. So easy to believe, right? If I don't do it, yeah.
You gotta create some sort of attention also in fundraising.
Yeah.
You have to promote the work in some senses that you're doing in order for people to be interested to want to support you physically and materially.
Totally.
Just wrestling with that.
Yeah. I'd love to talk with you offline about that as well. That's a really significant issue. Yeah, good. All right, can we get to some other side of this, right? If you buy, or if you know someone that might have some of these issues, right? It doesn't have to be you, but you might know someone who has some of these issues. How do we get over this idea of self-centered service? How do we rediscover a heart of genuine service? And again, I just want to talk about three benefits and just some practical application in my own life. So how do we rediscover our service? So the first thing, I believe that if we can not have ourselves at the center of service, we are going to strengthen our impact. And part of the ways that we're going to do that, first thing is we're going to have fanatical delegation. We're going to have fanatical delegation to say, I only want to do the things that add the most value that I should do, and I want to empower people around me. I want to give them stretch assignments. I want to watch them flourish. I want them to take on greater responsibility, even if it's an area that you enjoy. I believe people that don't have to be the center of the story have a posture of saying, who can I bring along? How can I go with someone? How can I empower someone else to do the work that they might actually do better than I do? You know, the irony is after I kind of hit bottom, I started delegating, and I guess if I'm honest, I probably wanted to feel like needed a little bit, and the exact opposite thing happened. Like things actually happened better. and like you pop the illusion of your own importance. And it was such a healthy thing to realize there were other members of the team that were actually more equipped to do a better job in some of these areas than I was. Second thing, partnership as default. I am so convinced of this, that partnership is a default. And I think in churches in particular, partnership is really hard. I recently had an experience where we had a campaign to do a video series, and it was based on a devotional from one of from our country director in Rwanda called "What's in Your Hands," taken from Exodus 4:2, when God asks, "What's in your hands?" And just this crazy thing that throughout Scripture, oftentimes when there's a problem, God responds using what God has already gifted and equipped. And so we did this kind of video piece on that as a way of telling the hope story, but also just trying to encourage us to think differently about what God has given us in our hands. And as we released the video, I got a call from a ministry leader who asked us to stop using Exodus 4:2 because he had trademarked it for his organization. I kid you not. And so, you know, he had trademarked the verse, and he wanted us to stop. He gave us a cease and desist that we had to stop using Exodus 4:2. And I wish I could have laughed, but my response was more I wanted to cry. Because I feel like that is perhaps more symptomatic than we might care to believe. That even God's word, we might try to trademark it for our mission, for our ideas, as opposed to being open-handed with everything that we've been given. At Hope, we see partnership as the default, and right now we have a campaign where we hired 1.5 full-time equivalent people to do, we're calling it Project Open-Handedness. I kind of want to go to the other side. So 2 people that will take everything that we've learned about international development or about organizational growth or about fundraising, anything that we have, and I want to be open-handed in intentionally sharing it with others. And so everything from our board manuals to our operation manuals to our operating methodology, I want to be copied, I want to be tweaked, and there are no trademarks. Take anything you want. Copy this presentation. Put your face on the, don't use my face on that. Other than that, take it. And I feel like that's I just feel like that's the posture that we want to have, is who's already doing this? How do we link arms? And so even organizationally around the world, when we go into a new country, we first say, who's already there? And if we can provide capital, if we can provide training, if we can provide development, I'd rather partner with an existing Christ-centered microfinance institution than going out and starting one from scratch. partnership becomes the default when it's not about us.
Quick question, what, did you end up doing anything with the guy from the trademark? What was your final response to him?
There are very few times when I have had intentional civil disobedience. This isn't civil, but I disobeyed. No, you can't trademark a Bible verse. That's God's. Like, he's got the trademark, and he's open access. So no, I respectfully, and actually it was interesting. To his credit,
He didn't sue you?
he has not sued us. To his credit, it was so funny. We were joint speakers at a conference shortly after this.
Great.
And the pastor, for the theme of the conference, chose open hands as the theme of the entire conference, which I thought was just so fantastic. So no, go on our website. You can watch it today. That is still out there. We had. I hopefully did it in a loving and respectful way, but in my mind, that was. I didn't think that was a reasonable request. Yeah. And they had filed for a trademark. It had not been granted as well. So a little bit of clarification on that. Third thing, success timeline. Success timeline. So this is the other piece that I'm so convinced of. If it's not about us, the most important measure of our success is what happens when we're gone. I believe that churches or charities or ministries that somehow decline after the leader is gone, that is perhaps the most important, and this isn't about like attendance or budgets, in terms of like vitality of ministry. If the organization or church declines, I believe that is the most important performance review that you can ever get. So I've asked our board to give me my final performance review 2 years after I'm gone. And I believe that is by far my most important appraisal. What happens when I left? What do I leave behind? Is this about a person or is this about a mission? And that changes everything. It changes when you enter into a relationship with a potential funder. It's always two, it's not one. You're always with someone else, so it's not just a one-on-one relationship. It changes the way that you think about empowering others. It changes the way that you think about like long-term. When it's time to transition, I want to have a healthy time of progression. It means internal promotion instead of hoping for external recruitment. All of those things, I believe, change when our success timeline goes from beyond when we're here and extends to when we're no longer there. Second way, I believe that having us not at the center has a massive strengthening impact on our families. After the conversation with Laurel, I thought that I would make things better by 2 or 3 days away and having a family vacation. Why are you laughing? I thought like we'd be all better after like a weekend away. It had been, seriously, I honestly thought that this would make everything better. Why are you shaking your head, Charlotte?
Well, because you can't take care of something in 3 days that you built up over that long a time.
True statement. It was miserable. It was totally miserable. Because I was like trying so hard. And Laurel wanted to know, like, is this real? Like, really? Like, really? Really?
Yeah.
Really? No.
No.
No. That's what she said. No. Oh, wish I could have had a conversation with you. You know what finally did it, though? She needed to believe that the change was real, and I wrote my resignation letter multiple months later. I put it in an envelope, I sealed it, I gave it to her, and I said, if you ever feel this way again, that I'm not being the husband that you need me to be, send my resignation letter, and I will walk away from this ministry, because my calling right now is to God, my calling is to you, and what I do as a job is so far below that. And so she mailed the letter twice, but I put the wrong address on it the first 2 times. No, I'm just kidding.
I read the book.
She hasn't mailed it yet, thankfully, and I'm still with Hope International. But the thing that it did is it finally, right? It finally allowed her to believe that the change was real. And then guardrails, so I spend a certain number of nights traveling. Traveling is a bear, and if any of you travel a bunch, I strongly encourage you to set up whatever those guardrails are, get mutual agreement, get accountability, and track it on a monthly basis, because travel is a killer to normal routine. And my heart breaks for people that have jobs that have significant travel. As much as possible, figure out the right limit for your stage of life. And can I just do one more shout out to Charlie? Charlie is, as he mentioned, a retired businessman, and he spends his time helping ministries through one of his many gifts of flying people around in his airplane. And so I was able to wake up at a normal time in Lancaster and be here for a start. And so Charlie, thanks. You helped me in a massive way, and I'll be home before, everyone's asleep at home tonight. So, incredible gift. But even if I didn't have Charlie, having a set limit of number of nights makes you delegate. It makes you say no to good things so you can say yes to the most important things in life, and it's been so helpful. And then monitoring and evaluation. This is the other one. My friends make fun of me mercilessly with this, but I was so struck that I had no idea that Laurel was feeling this way. I'm not the most perceptive individual, and so I like systems and I like data. And so there is a system of 10 questions that we go through quarterly. The time is of my choosing. I'm biased in when I administer the survey, but it allows me to know, like, how am I trending here? Am I trending up or down in the most important areas? And whether or not you do like full-on data analysis of your relationship with your wife or with family issues, I encourage you, have you ever asked people closest to you how you're doing? Like, honestly, have you ever asked people closest to you to say, like, how am I doing showing you love? And, just give me a number, 0 to 10. My guess, I think women are more perceptive in general. If you're a male, my guess is your number in your head is higher than the number that you will hear. That was my experience, by multiple deviations on that one. There we go, whatever. Maybe something here will, try it though, try it, because it will bring health, and it's better to know than not to know. Last thing, I believe you strengthen yourself and your faith and your walk, and I feel like this idea, the first one, that there's no invincibility. There are more godly, more holy, more passionate, more faithful people than you that have really, really messed up. And in Scripture, it is 2 out of 3 do not finish well. Those are people that had conversations with the Almighty God, like burning bushes. Like, there's an incredible amount of Scripture that talks about even people, even the descendants of Joshua. It's not guaranteed that those stories are going to finish well. And so this idea that there's no invincibility then allows you to get serious about saying, man, I want to be one of those 3. I want to be someone who finishes well. I want to be someone who has a legacy of faithfulness. And God uses all kinds of brokenness to do incredible things, but if given the choice, I don't want to have to go through some of those pieces. So one of the things is this idea of prophetic critique. When was the last time you invited someone to speak into your life? Like, when is the last time you actually invited someone to let you see things that maybe everyone sees but you? Maybe there are some times in your life that someone else needs to be given an invitation to speak truth. And my guess is the more successful you are, the more higher profile you are in ministry, the more at danger you are, and the less likely there is that anyone's going to really tell you what you need to hear. Why are we so shocked when we hear about the next Christian leader that has some big fallout? Like, some of those pieces, I really think it could have been avoided if we would have invited in the prophetic critique. Scripture is full of people coming, bursting into rooms and doing dramatic displays, telling powerful stories about sheep, and we just don't have that today. And I think it's on us to invite that in and say, help me see what I don't see. Where are the blind spots in my own life? Lastly, I believe Sabbath, I really am convinced about this idea of Sabbath is something that is of all the 10 commandments, this is the one that we think is one of the suggestions. Maybe they're like, do not murder, that's probably a commandment, but keep the Sabbath holy, that's kind of a suggestion. And yet I believe there's something powerful when 1 out of every 7, the pattern that's established, that we literally say, I'm going to break, because it's a reminder that this world is not yours to save. It's a reminder of your own limitation. It's time to give yourself space and a place for healing and wholeness that will equip you for the other 6. And I believe that it is not common practice. When I meet with leaders, I believe that the vast majority of them are running so hard and are running on empty for too long. And this gift of Sabbath for you is one of the greatest gifts in Scripture that I think God has designed for our good. I want to close, see if you have any questions here, but I want to, my time's up here. I want to just real quickly, this to me, this pattern in Scripture, again, you guys know Scripture so much better than I do, but this contrast of stories I found so powerful. But Acts chapter 12, it says this. It says, on the appointed day, Herod, wearing his royal robe, sat on his throne and delivered a public address to the people. They shouted, this is the voice of a God, not of a man. Immediately, because Herod did not give praise to God, an angel of the Lord struck him down when he was eaten by worms and died. Now, anyone know Greek? Because I find this sequence incredible that literally he was eaten by worms and died. Was he eaten by worms? It sounds terrible. Struck down, eaten by worms, and died? That's a horrible sentence. That's another one that's not crocheted on her wall. But what did he do? What was Herod's great offense to Almighty God? He took the credit. And what did he actually do? Nothing. Right? People said, this is the voice of a God, not of a man. And you almost get the picture of, stop. Yeah, right? I mean, right? He just received it. He just took it. And God said, that's not okay. There's only one God, and you're not it, Herod. Let me just remind you, eaten by worms and died. What happens 2 chapters later? Does anyone know? 2 chapters later, just other story. It's same geography. It's also in Lystra. It's also Paul and Barnabas. And does anyone remember this? Yeah.
Is that where they say that Paul and Barnabas are gods?
Totally. The story almost starts in a very similar way, that there's this incredible thing that happens. So here it was, Acts chapter 14, again, 2 chapters later. In Lystra, there sat a man who was lame. He'd been that way from birth and had never walked. He listened to Paul as he was speaking. Paul looked directly at him, saw that he had faith to be healed, and called out, stand up on your feet. At that, the man jumped up and began to walk. An incredible healing, right? The response of the people always want to put people on pedestals. They want a God that they can see. And so the response is very similar to the response of Herod's great oration. And here's what they did. They said, when the crowd saw what Paul had done, they shouted in the Lycaonian language, the gods have come down to us in human form. Barnabas they called Zeus, and Paul they called Hermes, because he was the chief speaker. The priest of Zeus, whose temple was just outside the city, brought bowls and wreaths to the city gates, because he and the crowd wanted to offer sacrifices to them. Now, if this story went the same way as the Herod story, what would Paul and Barnabas have done?
Died.
Died. The worms would be coming towards them, right? Exactly. They would have simply said, thank you, I like my bowl medium rare. They would have just received this incredible thing, this incredible healing, and they just would have said, yeah. Now, their response stands in such stark contrast to Herod's response. They make a public spectacle of themselves. This is what they do. When the apostles Barnabas and Paul heard of this, they tore their clothes, rushed out into the crowd, shouting, friends, why are you doing this? We too are only human like you. We are bringing you good news, telling you to turn from these worthless things to the living God, who made the heavens and the earth and the sea and everything in them. I just love the physical aspect of this. This is, they literally made fools of themselves. You don't rip your clothes in public. Your mom teaches you that at a young age. You don't do that. And yet they did that to make such an example of saying, we're like you. You're missing the point. If you see what we're doing and miss whose power it was, if you miss the healing that came from God and think it was a healing of us, you've missed the entire point. It's not about us. It is about the God who made the heavens and the earth. It's about God's glory and not ours. And I feel like that's the posture that I want to have. It's that posture that I believe leads to flourishing churches and communities. It's that posture that says we want to be about good work. We want to be about radical sacrifice and love. We want people to see these crazy things that we do in love and service to others. But we never want to get in the way of people seeing that we are not the center of the story, that we are simply supporting cast members that are pointing to the only God, the only one who is due glory and honor. And we want you to see God, and we don't want you to see us. And so that really, when I think about this group of people, you are doing a whole lot of really good work. And my hope and my prayer is that at the end of the day, though, it wouldn't be people seeing you. People would see through you to see the cross, to see the empty tomb. People would see through you, and they would get to see our Savior. And so that's what I hope that happens, is you do good, don't tire of doing good, and may people see our Savior and not us. So I'm